You did everything right. You read the articles, you followed the advice. You saved 3 to 6 months of expenses and called it financial security. Here's the truth nobody is saying out loud. That emergency fund you're so proud of, it's already failing you. And most people won't find out until it's too late. I'm Julia, and what I'm about to show you isn't a theory. It's what's actually happening to real people in 2026 who followed the exact same advice you did and still ended up drowning. If you've ever wondered whether your emergency fund is truly enough, or if you've been telling yourself, I'm covered because you hit that 3-month target, make sure you watch this all the way through. Subscribe to Julia Invests if you're serious about building real financial protection, not just the feeling of it. Let's start with a number, $22,000. That's roughly what a 30-year-old earning $66,000 a year would save if they followed the traditional 6-month emergency fund rule. Sounds solid. Sounds responsible. Now let's talk about what $22,000 actually buys you in a real emergency in 2026.
Meet Daniel. He's 31, works in marketing, earns $66,000 a year. Monthly expenses, around $3,700. He saved $22,000. 6 months of cushion. He was proud of that number. He felt more prepared than most people he knew. Then his company merged with a competitor. His entire team was made redundant in a single email on a Tuesday morning. He wasn't panicking. He had $22,000. He had time. He had a plan. Here's what actually happened over the next 5 months.
Month 1. Daniel files for unemployment and starts job hunting. He gets $1,600 a month from unemployment benefits. His expenses are $3,700. He pulls $2,100 from his emergency fund. Balance, $19,900. Month 2. The job market is brutal. His industry absorbed 3 rounds of layoffs from other companies at the same time. He needs to update his certifications to stay competitive. An online course costs $900. He can't afford not to do it. He pulls $3,000 this month between the course and living expenses. Balance, $16,900.
Month 3. He lands a promising second-round interview in another city. 2 flights, 2 nights in a hotel, new interview outfit. That's $1,100 he had to spend to even have a shot. He doesn't get the job. Regular expenses plus interview costs, another $4,800 out. Balance, $12,100. Month 4. His laptop dies. It's 4 years old and it finally gives out. He needs it to apply for jobs, attend virtual interviews, do freelance work on the side. A refurbished replacement, $950. He also had a dental emergency, a cracked molar. Without insurance tied to his old job, the bill is $1,800 out of pocket. Between the laptop, the dental work, and living expenses, $6,450 gone. Balance, $5,650.
Month 5, he finally gets an offer. It's in a different city, pays $61,000. Less than before, but he needs income now. Moving costs, security deposit, first month's rent, utility setup fees, that's $5,200 just to get there and get settled. His emergency fund is gone. He starts his new job with $450 in his account and $2,300 on a credit card. Daniel thought 6 months was enough. In reality, it lasted 4 months and 3 weeks. And that was with no medical emergency beyond the dental issue. No family crisis, no car breakdown, just a job loss and the real-world costs of recovering from one. This is not a worst-case scenario. This is Tuesday in 2026.
So why is this happening? Why is the old advice failing people like Daniel every single day? 3 reasons. And none of them are your fault. Reason 1. The cost of individual emergencies has multiplied. Car repair that used to cost $600 now runs $1,800 to $2,500. Why? Because modern vehicles are computers. Diagnostic fees alone can hit $300 before anyone touches the engine. A single ER visit, even with insurance, will cost you $2,000 to $5,000 in deductibles and copays. 1 tooth, 1 root canal, $2,000 minimum. No negotiation, no discount for being responsible. If you own a home, a water heater replacement is $1,200. A new HVAC unit is $8,000 to $14,000. A roof? $18,000 to $35,000, depending on where you live. The traditional advice was built around emergencies costing $1,000 to $2,000. A single emergency in 2026 can devour 20 to 30% of your entire 6-month fund before you've even dealt with the income problem.
Reason 2. Emergencies don't arrive alone anymore. The old playbook assumed emergencies were isolated events. Your car breaks down, or you lose your job, or you have a medical bill. One thing at a time. Manageable, contained. But that's not how life actually works. You lose your job because of industry disruption, and your car breaks down during month 3 of your job search because you've been driving twice as much to interviews. And you're stressed, so you're sleeping poorly, eating badly, and your body decides this is the perfect time to send you to urgent care. Emergencies in 2026 are cascading. One crisis weakens your position. The next one hits you when you're already down. And your emergency fund, built for one isolated event, has to fight a 3-front war. Reason 3. Job recovery takes longer than the advice was designed for. The 3 to 6 month rule was built on an assumption that you could find a comparable job in your field within that window. In the 1990s, maybe. In 2005, sometimes. In 2026, the average professional job search takes 5 to 9 months. In specialized fields or during industry contractions, when everyone in your field is searching at the same time, it can stretch to 12 months or more. Think about what that means. If you saved 6 months of expenses and your job search takes 7 months, you run out of money 1 month before you even start earning again. Your emergency fund expires at the exact moment you need it most.
Now let me show you something that nobody talks about. I call it silent erosion, and it's happening to your emergency fund right now, even if you never touch it. Your money is sitting in a high-yield savings account. It's earning interest, it feels safe, it feels like it's working. But inflation is running at 5 to 7% on the things people actually spend money on. Rent, food, medical care, car repairs, services. Your savings account is paying you 4%, if you're lucky. That means every single year your emergency fund sits untouched, it loses 1 to 2% of its real purchasing power. The $22,000 Daniel saved 2 years ago, in real purchasing power against 2026 emergency costs, it was closer to $20,200 the day he needed it. The emergencies got more expensive. His fund stayed the same number on the screen, but it bought less, much less. This is why your emergency fund always feels like it's not quite enough. Because it isn't. Not anymore. Not the way it's structured.
So what is the right number? Not 3 months, not 6. For most people in 2026, the minimum target is 12 months of actual expenses. Not your budget, not what you wish you spent, what you actually spend, including the chaos that comes with a real emergency. Let me show you what that looks like for someone in Daniel's position. Monthly take-home after taxes on $66,000, roughly $4,400. Monthly expenses, $3,700. Traditional advice target, $22,000.
My target? At least $44,000, and ideally $52,000 to account for the inflated cost of actual emergencies and the purchasing power erosion over time. I can already feel the resistance from here. $50,000 sitting in a savings account? That's not investing, that's fear. Here's my response to that. The people who say your emergency fund is too conservative are usually the same people who haven't lived through a real emergency yet.
Let me tell you about Priya. She's 36, earns $91,000 as a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm. Monthly expenses around $5,200. She saved the traditional 6 months, $31,200. She also had $80,000 invested. She was doing well. Then 2 things happened within the same quarter. First, her mother had a stroke. Priya became the primary caregiver. She reduced her hours to part-time.
Her income dropped from $7,500 a month to $3,100. That's a $4,400 monthly gap she had to fill from her emergency fund.
Second, her apartment lease ended, and her landlord raised the rent by $900 a month. She had to move. Moving costs, new deposit, overlap in rent, another $7,800 up front. Over 6 months, income shortfall $26,400, moving and setup costs $7,800, medical copays and equipment for her mother $4,200, incidentals, travel to appointments, adjusted diet for her mother's condition $3,100. Total, $41,500.
Her $31,200 emergency fund was gone in under 5 months. She had to liquidate $10,300 of her investments at a time when the market was down, locking in a loss she wouldn't have had to take if her emergency fund had been large enough. She did everything right. She saved, she invested, she planned, and she still ended up selling investments at a loss to cover a caregiving emergency that millions of people will face before they're 40. Here's the piece that completes this picture. The part that traditional advice never accounted for. Your emergency fund has to do 2 jobs at the same time. Job 1, replace your income while you're not earning. Job 2, pay for the actual cost of fixing the crisis. The 3 to 6 month calculation only ever did job 1. It replaced income, it covered your existing expenses, but it never budgeted for the cost of the emergency itself. The interview flights, the certifications, the moving truck, the medical equipment, the caregiving help, the lawyer fees, the system failures that come with every real-life crisis. That second job, paying for the fix, often costs just as much as the first. Sometimes more. When you factor in both jobs, 6 months of expenses doesn't come close. Here's the framework I use to calculate the real number. Start with 12 months of current expenses. That's your floor, not your ceiling. Add 3 months if you work in a volatile or disrupted industry. Add 3 months if you own a home instead of renting. Add 3 months if you have children or dependents. Add 3 months if you have any recurring health conditions. Add 3 months if you're self-employed or have variable income. Add 6 months if you're the only income earner in your household. If you're self-employed, own a home, and have 2 kids, your real target is somewhere around 24 months of expenses. That's not paranoia. That's math. Yes, it takes time to build. Yes, it means slower investment growth in the short term. But here's the thing about opportunity cost. Going into debt at 22% credit card interest because your emergency fund ran out in month 4 is the most expensive opportunity cost of all. Daniel eventually got back on his feet. He paid off the credit card, he rebuilt, but this time he didn't follow the traditional advice. He's 33 now, earns $61,000 at his new job, and has $41,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account. His friends think he's being overly cautious. He thinks he's being honest about the world he actually lives in. The traditional advice isn't wrong because the people who wrote it were careless. It's wrong because the world changed, and the playbook didn't. Job security is lower than it's been in decades. Healthcare costs keep rising faster than wages. Industries are being disrupted faster than people can retrain. Natural disasters are more frequent. Economic uncertainty is higher. The emergencies your parents faced are smaller, more isolated, and less expensive. The emergencies you face in 2026 are bigger, more cascading, and far more costly. Your emergency fund needs to reflect that reality, not the reality from a personal finance book written 15 years ago. So here's what you do. Stop celebrating hitting 3 months. Stop treating 6 months as the finish line. Calculate what 12 months of actual expenses looks like for you. Apply the risk factors from the framework above and start building toward that real number, aggressively, consistently, without apology. Because your emergency fund isn't a symbol of discipline. It's the only thing standing between you and financial collapse when the thing you never expected actually happens. And in 2026, that thing is no longer a question of if. It's only a question of when and whether you'll be ready. Most people won't be. You don't have to be one of them.